Good evening, afternoon, morning, or whenever you may find yourself to see this. We have a guest, sort of like a crossover of sorts too, because we have our friend of the podcast, Duane from the Yard-HBCU, and of course, I mean, if you live under a rock, I mean, that's the only excuse to not know what this weekend is. We have the HBCU Legacy Bowl, which serves to finally cap the college football season. And man, I'm excited for this game. I mean, we had the appetizer in December. We had the HBCU Pigskin Showdown, the appetizer out in Central Alabama, and then now we have the main dish, the Legacy Bowl. No disrespect to the Pigskin Showdown, a great game, but there's been more anticipation for this one, and I'm excited to see so many talents showcased in front of a national television audience in the Big Easy. It's a great time, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Omar. It's ironic because I just happened to read or peruse over an article that I wrote about a game. I don't know if you guys are familiar, called the Hbcu Bowl, that took place between 2010 to 2012, I think was this final year, down in Atlanta, ironically enough, in, what was it called before they tore it down? At the Georgia Dome. Yeah, they used to have it down in the Georgia Dome. And I talked about my excitement for the Hbcu Bowl back then. Mind you, that game wasn't televised. I was just happy that there was a game of that magnitude that was played in an NFL stadium that brought all of the best players in HBCU football together. And I just remember perusing the list, and two guys that I know most definitely made NFL rosters, and Ryan Davis, who played linebacker with Bethune-Cookman, that went on to play a couple of years with Jacksonville Jaguars, and Marquette King, the punter, who played several years, the Pro Bowl punter to be exact, that played a lot of his time with the Raiders and with the Broncos. So I was highly excited about that game. You can only imagine how excited I am coming up this Saturday for a game like this to be televised, not just televised, but on NFL Network nonetheless. And then to have friends in my head, Charles Davis, to help commentate this game, and then of course the rest of the commentary team who most definitely commentated, who most definitely handle the commentary duties on the NFL Network games on a regular basis. But most definitely Charles Davis, who I know peeks into HBCU talent from time to time to talk about how good that they are.
You know, I believe the other two are Steve Weich, who does a terrific job for the NFL Network, and Bucky Brooks, who's on the Move the Sticks podcast, talking all about the NFL draft. I know he'll do the combine in Indianapolis. So, man, it's legit NFL draft focused talent also doing the game, which I think is also awesome.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And of course, Sam is an HBCU alum, being an alum of Howard University.
I mean, just like on the field, elite talent in the booth as well. And I mean, yeah, I'm so glad that the NFL Network have rolled out the red carpet for this because they do a great job with the All-Star games. I mean, covering all of them too really makes it enjoyable. I'm excited to hear the jingle. I've talked to Jackson many times about the NFL Network jingle, how we think it's like the best in the NFL. But just an exciting time. There's so many talents that I guess on loaded college football Saturdays you just wouldn't really see through no fault of their own, because in this day and age, like, there's no excuse to like not find a game. I mean, it's I mean, with streaming and everything, this is the only football game of the day. It's in the afternoon. There's not much sports other than like college basketball to compete with, but I mean, there's no pro sports. The NBA games, of course, are the main NBA games at night. Like, this is a standalone game, and a lot of players, in a standalone spot, a spot to shine too. Whether it be, repeat guys that shine in All-Star games, like Will Glass, which I'm sure one of us will talk about. But yeah, no, it's just, I'm excited for this game. And I just can't wait to dive into some of these players. So those of you that have listened to our podcast or watched, that our format for each week is like players to watch, especially for All-Star games, sort of like draft style. So we're gonna do that the same way too, with the 3-man rotation, a little bit different. We'll start with Jackson here, with his first player to watch.
Absolutely. And I just want to preface, if you think, yeah, the HBCUs have a bunch of Hall of Famers from back in the day, but do they really contribute to modern NFL football? Man, the answer is absolutely. Look at Teron Armstead. Look at Darius Leonard. I'm sure Duane could name many more active NFL players that are from the HBCUs, man. So these are guys to watch that it is a very real possibility that you'll see them on Sundays. So these are guys that, and certainly on draft day, right? So definitely names that you'll need to be familiar with coming up. Man, I'm going to go with who I've seen multiple people say maybe the best guy playing on Saturday, Ezra Gray, the running back from Alabama State. He is a 3-time all-SWAC running back, always a 4.0 or above in the classroom. So I'm sure he will make an excellent impression in interviews. And then at the HBCU Combine, a 37-inch vertical jump, which is just insane. So I'm sure, Omar, you know me, my phrase I say every podcast, if you can't catch, you can't play as a running back. I'm sure we'll see Gray catch the ball out of the backfield a good bit, just like MJD. And sure, we'll see him on some running the ball a lot too. So, man, I'm excited to see Gray on Saturday.
Just a powerful back out of Alabama State. I mean, just like a powerful build. The vertical jump surprises me a lot. I mean, I'm not sure how many jump ball situations he'll be getting in as a back, but I mean, he's got a higher vertical than our guy Trey Gross, who we've talked about more than a few times. So
I don't know that
well.
vertical jump is as important as explosion is, right? Because a lot of times when you go with power, it doesn't go hand in hand with explosion. That vertical shows that Ezra has both.
I've never thought about it like that. I mean, geez, I guess I'm so simple-minded to just think, oh, vertical jump, last second Hail Mary or fade route. You know, it's like, why do we measure that for anyone else? So I guess I'll go on to my next player. I'll stay in the backfield at quarterback, and we've talked about this guy a couple times throughout the year. Juwan Carter from Norfolk State, and I just enjoy this quarterback class for the HBCU Legacy Bowl because we have sort of like all different styles. We have playmakers like Juwan Carter, guys with that magician quality, which I think we're going to start using a lot more after the EJ Perry preview that we had for the East West Shrine Bowl. But guys with magician qualities like Juwan Carter, Felix Harper, and he also got pocket passers too, like Quill Glass, and Darius Skelton too, a guy that's a definite wild card. It's sort of like a Terrell Pryor type guy that you use all over the place, and you can use anywhere on the field. But Carter, I looked at his tape against Wake Forest, probably like, I guess a lot of scouts are looking for, that high level competition, even though Wake Forest's defense was an abomination this year, giving up 56 points to Army and 3 passing touchdowns to, their option offense. But in that game, what I saw was a guy that's quick reads in his RPOs, able to step up in the pocket well, even though he kind of does that a lot. You might want to see more poise in him, but I mean, it's great to see him step up in the pocket and scramble as well. Solid ball placement, intermediate throws, and I got a hot take here. I think just if you look at the situation fully for that Wake Forest game, you had Sam Hartman going against a MEAC defense, and then you had Juwan Carter going into ACC defense, as bad as Wake Forest was. I think Juwan Carter outplayed Sam Hartman that day. I mean, now it didn't reflect on the scoreboard, but given what Juwan Carter had, I think he outplayed Hartman. Just a great playmaker at quarterback. A little bit small is what the scouts say, but I mean, what does size matter nowadays? If you look at Kyler Murray, I was about to mention Baker Mayfield, but Jackson's gonna roast me if I mention Baker. I won't give up on Baker yet. But I'm excited to see Juwan Carter too, and a good cap to a great year for a resurgent. Oh, I guess a solid year for a resurgent Norfolk State team.
Well, I want to touch on a couple of things based on the guys that you just talked about. First and foremost, with Trey Gross, wide receiver out of Delaware State, 6'4", 210, big body wide receiver. Didn't necessarily have the numbers because he didn't necessarily have the QB with a big arm up there in Dover, but he does have NFL size. And then, of course, you talked about Juwan Carter. I got to go ahead and shout out my man, Jaylen Powell, the offensive lineman up there that played with him. Had a couple of encounters with him, both in social media and in person. Great guy. He's also going to be playing in a game up there in New Orleans. I don't know necessarily if he has NFL body. I just want to see necessarily if he has the hustle to go ahead and move up to the next level. So you're going to see a theme with my with the guys that I want you guys to watch. And if you've noticed, a lot of the draft picks, unfortunately, coming out of HBCUs, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Well, I will say unfortunately, because one, the number of guys that have been drafted in the past 4 years is under 10. but it seems as though it's been in three main positions: the offensive line, outside linebacker, defensive end, and then that's actually it. Really, it's just offensive line and defensive line and line. Oh, I forgot middle linebacker. How can I forget about the second round draft pick out of South Carolina State, Darius Leonard? So basically, linebacker, defensive end, offensive line. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the big uglies, the guys up front, the guys that don't necessarily get a lot of love, and also the guys. Unfortunately, I don't know necessarily not about their metrics, but of course, if we go ahead and see their measurables and the things that they've done with the teams that they played with, that could be a potential gauge on whether or not these guys could be considered as NFL talent or not. So the first guy I want to talk about, and a level that we haven't touched on just yet, Division II. I want to go ahead and talk about my man, Greg Brooks, the offensive lineman out of Fayetteville State. Now, along with his teammate, Jalen Galloway, who's also going to be playing at the NFL Legacy Bowl, Brooks, Galloway, and that offensive line unit, they basically led that Broncos offense to be the second best offense in the CIAA. And they've also won 3 division titles in the CIAA, the South Division 3 times, being 2018, 2019, and of course, 2021. And that offense averaged well over 30 points a game in the past 3 years that he's been there in Vietnam, as the locals like to call it.
Yeah, and I mean, shoot, I almost called it Fayetteville myself, but Fayetteville State. Shoot, I actually heard I guess a general would call it Vietnam itself. So I guess it stretches the military too, just being near Fort Bragg. But anyway, I mean, Josh Williams too in the Senior Bowl. It seems like Fayetteville State is becoming I guess I wouldn't say a factory, but people are taking notice of the talent that they have down there in North Carolina, which is great to see. Not only with this game, but of course with the Senior Bowl and Josh Williams, a cornerback with good size. So yeah, Jackson, I'll go back to you for your next pick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and go with someone in the secondary with Will Adams, the safety from Virginia State. Man, what really caught my eye for him was how incredibly well he tested at the HBCU Combine. 21 reps at 225 pounds, obviously the standard bench press for the NFL, 40.5-inch vertical and over a 10-foot broad jump. Man, he also has some stats to back it up. He does only have 1 interception as a safety, but man, 61 tackles and even 1.5 tackles for loss. Definitely can move around all over the field.
I think that's sort of like a theme we'll see with like a lot of defensive backs in these games. I know we talked about Luke Masterson beforehand, a little bit beforehand, if anything, a brief mention before the Hula Bowl. That's a guy who got in the backfield a lot, ended up winning defensive MVP. You want guys to go downhill and make tackles like that because, of course, we've talked about before, special teams being their ticket in. A lot of late round picks ticket into the game off the bench and onto the field. So I mean, that definitely bodes well. I mean, a lot, I guess, casual fans will see interceptions for defensive backs and judge based off that. And if they're even more into the game, they'll look at pass breakups and look at that. But I mean, tackles is just as important too. You want a guy that's physical as well. For those reasons, a guy that can make special teams tackles for your team. I mean, when you think special teams, I guess very casuals might look at Matthew Slater and say, oh man, this guy only has 1 touchdown in his career and, less than 10 catches. Why is he still on the team? Well, I mean, do you only watch the 2 phases of the game or all 3? So just a little mention there. For my next guy, I'm going to stay in the backfield, but I'm going to go with a good old fullback. We have Brett Silv, who is a bit small for a fullback, but played for Kentucky State. And man, I had the most fun watching his tape out of anyone because I love the triple option. They ran the flex bone. It really turned around the program. They went 0-11 before they switched to the flex bone. 7-4 the next season. Just really great. But Silv is 5'8", 210. Built, of course, he's got to be built to play fullback. but he hits holes quickly because if you think about the flex bone scheme, and I wish I had my whiteboard, but the fullback lines up 3 yards behind the quarterback compared to other schemes, like single back, I formation, you name it, 7 yards back or so. The closest thing to it that we see in the league is running backs running out of the pistol formation, but even then they're 7 yards behind the line. So he hits holes quick. He averaged over 6.5 yards a carry this year, had over 1,000 yards on only 157 carries. You want to see more pass catching out of him because how many passes are is a fullback going to catch out of the flex bone? But in the HBCU Pigskin Showdown, which he was MVP of, he had a nice touchdown catch in the end zone, showed some good leaping ability too, and believe it or not, also return kicks, has 3 kick return touchdowns. Let me check my notes again to see how many he has exactly. But for his career, he has three career kick return touchdowns. And when I see Brett Silva, I see sort of like a Duane Harris, a guy that's, built shorter, wouldn't look like a kick returner, but, does a great job returning those kicks. And you might see Silva break on the roster for that reason too. So I like him a lot, triple option and everything. I want to see option guys break into the league.
And since we're doing this next style, I'll go ahead and I'll drop 2 more gems on you guys. Again, I'm sticking with the offensive line. Let me go into the OVC. And I'm going to go with Tennessee State's offensive tackle, Cam Durley. 6'8", 320 pounds. Most definitely has NFL size and is a back-to-back first-team All-OVC selection. And then out of Florida A&M, offensive tackle Keenan Fobbs, 6'3", 320. Is a Hero Sports. Shout out to my boys over at Hero Sports. And Stats Perform FCS All-American and all-conference performer in both the MEAC and the SWAC. So you have these guys that have played on phenomenal offenses, especially with Durley and that offense over there at Tennessee State behind Rosenthal and the wideout that's currently they used to be with the Atlanta Falcons, Chris Rowland. That was taken by the Falcons as a free agent a couple of years ago. That offense was high octane and scored a lot of points, put up a lot of yardage. And I think that quarterback Rosenthal put up the most passing yards as a QB in Tennessee State history. So Durley was a part of that O-line. And, of course, with Fobbs, that offense. Now, a couple of years ago, their offense in Florida A&M, they ended up having the best record in the MEAC. But, of course, because of off-field transgressions, they were incapable of competing with the CIAA, not the CIAA, I'm sorry, with the Celebration Bowl. But, they went ahead and they carried on that success going over to the SWAC. And they were, of course, 1 game away from making the SWAC championship game with that 7-6 loss against Jackson State. And that offense, even though it looked different, being pass happy back in 2018 and 2019 to being very run heavy in 2021, it seems as though that Fobbs did not lose a step and was capable of adapting.
Duane, one thing with Cam Durley that I want to say, you mentioned him having NFL size. He certainly does with height and weight. Another thing, especially with linemen that you think of with NFL size, is arm length, right? 33 3/8 inch arms, which is certainly NFL size for that. I believe of the linemen tested, it's about the 3rd longest arms in there at the HBCU combine. So, man, NFL size in every capacity, height, weight, arm length. Those are the 3 things you want to hit on as a lineman.
And Jackson, I mean, shoot, you look at things that I wouldn't even think about looking. I mean, I enjoy it too, because when I think about arm size, I just think like, hey, I mean, they're gonna come to you anyway. I mean, and this comes from the experience of a guy that played corner in high school and special teams. My experience on the line lasted 1 play on a punt block, and I was double teamed for whatever reason. And but yeah, so I mean, I just wouldn't look at these things. I mean, I really appreciate that look, but
Omar, they treated you like Aaron Donald out there. I mean,
yeah, take it as that. They just saw you as a threat.
Exactly. Compliment, Omar.
I wouldn't say that, but I will say it was just confusion. That's all it was, just some confusion. But yeah, Jackson, I guess I'll throw it to your next guy, whether it be a lineman or not.
It is not a lineman. I'm gonna keep it with the specialist. D. Anderson is my next guy, the wide receiver from Alabama A&M. Man, what I really like, his height, 6'5", like head and shoulders above everyone else. Only tested on a couple of things at the combine, but man, during the year, 33 receptions, just short of 500 yards, 12 touchdowns, and a 15-yard average, which is just insane. So certainly looking for him to have a great performance on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you want these receivers with nice size. I mean, of course, we talked about Trey Gross a couple times too. What I'm interested to find out is if your guy is as aggressive and I guess as aggressive and violent after the catch as Trey Gross was, because I remember telling you, Jackson, that I fell in love with Trey Gross's tape. Like I saw a guy that can do jump balls. Was aggressive, fights for yardage after. So I'm interested to see that in the game Saturday. And of course, Alabama A&M, we all know about Aquil Glass, but we had to have weapons too. So great size as well. Was he in the HBCU combine too, or?
That's a wonderful question. I think. Go ahead, Jackson.
Oh, I was gonna say, I believe he was. Let me look it up real quick. He was only tested. He didn't test that much, but he did test, I believe. He did all the size stuff and then only did the vertical. Or no, excuse me. He just tested for arm, hand, wingspan, all that stuff. Didn't end up testing. So.
But okay. I do have a 40-time form of a 4.58 from somewhere where he ran somewhere. Yeah.
Right in that that's right in the territory. Hey, maybe you're not fast, but you're quick, which is way more important. Look at Jerry Rice, ran a 4.57. So don't be scared by that number.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great point too. I mean, shoot, because I looked at some of those 40s and I was like, kind of iffy, but I mean, of course, you look at other things like the shuttle, the cone drill, and whatnot, like that all contributes to, especially like change of direction and route running too. I mean, a lot of guys make their money on route running, so I'm gonna go with the other side of the ball here, and I'm gonna talk about go to the NAIA, go to Oklahoma, and talk about Lauren Young from Langston out in Oklahoma. And this is a guy that had a shortened season this year, was injured, but he was dominant throughout the year. In 5 games, he totaled 10.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He's a bit undersized at 6'2", 260. At the moment, he could probably fit into a 4-3 scheme as a defensive end. If he can gain some weight too, I mean, that definitely helps him a lot. But just him being able to represent Langston in a game like this on national TV, NAIA, not even NCAA too. I mean, shoot, I guess people begin to be dumbfounded at the FCS level too. I mean, much less the NAIA. So great for him to represent his school. Hopefully he has a great game too. And I know I looked at our notes and I saw that he hung out with Doug Williams. I don't know if you want to bring that up later on, but that's something that caught my eye as like a coincidence in our planning. So.
Okay, now see, now that you're on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to go into a direction that you also talked about a little bit earlier when you talked about the talent pool that's in the state of North Carolina. I'm going to stick just there. I'm going to go ahead and go just up the road, I-40 from my second home of Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm going to go to Shaw University with Devin Hunt, linebacker out of there. 4-time All-CIAA selection, 3-time first-team All-CIAA selection. And he was also the CIAA Defensive Player of the Year in 2018. Did not play in 2019. Looked like he dealt with the injury there. And again, that linebacker spot seems to be a pool of talent coming from HBCUs. It's going to be very interesting to see. I don't know if necessarily anyone takes a chance on him in the draft. Not his fault. One thing you'll hear me say is that a lot of these front offices, unfortunately, they are lazy. And the thing is, being that he's coming from a D2 program, my hope is that someone brings him in as an undrafted free agent and he gets a chance to show his ability to be able to play. If not as a linebacker on special teams, he'll be able to earn a spot and earn his way up. And from there, I will also go back. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball again, and I'm going to stay in North Carolina again. Back down to Fayetteville, we want to go to Keyshawn James, the 2021 CIAA Player of the Year, out there playing defensive end down in Fayetteville State. That's another guy you need to go ahead and keep your eye on. But I want to touch on a couple of guys. I'm gonna touch on a couple of guys who dropped out of the HBCU Legacy Bowl. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, But Cory Ramon, the safety out of Tennessee State, he was on a list originally of players that were going to appear. I looked at the list earlier today. He's currently not on there. Same thing with wideout from Florida A&M, Xavier Smith. I would have loved to have seen him. He was in the wideout that led Florida A&M a couple of years ago in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. And it would have been great to see him play in New Orleans. And also the spring 2021 FCS Defensive Player of the Year, Jordan Lewis out of Southern. Another guy who was slated to be down there in New Orleans who decided not to participate this weekend.
Jordan has shown enough, certainly. So it doesn't necessarily need, I think there's plenty of tape on Jordan to make scouts excited about him.
But I want to see him play some more.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If anyone were missing out, right? One thing you mentioned, Duane, with undrafted free agents or UDFAs, man, I don't think people realize the NFL draft is so short compared to other professional sports leagues, right? So, I mean, look at the Panthers last year. The majority of the rookie class came from UDFAs, especially because, I mean, those first few hours after the draft, it's not over. You're making tons of calls to agents and players and all that. So, man, people don't realize it's only 7 rounds. You're probably going to have about 13, 14 rookies at the end of the day. So plenty of UDFAs to go around, probably right around, I mean, 500, 550 guys that'll actually sign an NFL contract and have a shot to make the 53-man. So certainly something to watch for. And just because you don't get drafted doesn't mean it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all get caught up like with the whole draft thing. I mean, it's all televised, and they don't televise, of course, the phone calls or anything. It's not Jerry Maguire, but make an outstanding. I didn't even know that the Panthers had a mostly UDFA draft class. I would have thought a team like the Rams, with all the trades that they made, would have a UDFA draft class. No shade. I'm not salty at all about the AFC
because it only
game.
take like 2 guys, Omar. So.
But yeah, that's a great point. I know, Duane, you mentioned Cory Ramon. He had a great showing, or a solid showing, I should say, at the NFLPA at Collegiate Bowl. Had a pass breakup too. So I wouldn't say he's shown enough, but I totally understand him pulling out there too, and just a solid career path too. Started out in the NAIA with Southeast University, school I'd never heard of in Florida, then transferred, played out this year at Tennessee State, did a solid job. Another guy that, plays downhill, makes tackles. I guess sort of Andrew Sendejo type safety, a guy that makes plays in the backfield, not afraid to get his nose dirty and stuff. So just a quick note on Cory Ramon right there. Jackson, did you have another guy to watch out for?
Yeah, I sure did. I have LaCharles Pringle as my next guy, a wide receiver from Alcorn State. Man, if you look at some of his averages, 43 receptions, only 7 touchdowns, but man, he's averaging almost 16 yards per carry. So I don't believe that he is. Did he end up making on the? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's on there. So, but man, I'm excited to see Pringle. Another thing with him was that I noticed that again from the combine on there that they did was the wingspan. If I can find. I have that in my notes. I can't find it at the moment, but man, certainly it just speaks to NFL size, right? So something to look at with Pringle.
I will say that LaCharles Pringle, explosive, key part of the Alcorn State 2019 Celebration Bowl team, and I think 2018 too as well. I mean, just you mentioned the explosiveness, big playability as well. It's kind of like I hate to be the guy to make this joke, but it's like when you open the can of Pringles, the pop. When you bring Pringle on the field, the pop happens.
I was inviting you to it. That's my fault, Omar.
Yeah, I'll mute myself the rest of this. I'll see myself out, but I had to. So for my go ahead, Duane, my bad.
I was gonna say, being an Aggie, I've gotten my fill of seeing the Charles Pringle at Celebration Bowl both in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, I mean, and he had some fun in 2019 with that high scoring bash. I know you made a joke on one of our past podcasts that it was like update has it that NCAA just scored again, but that was a really fun one for sure. But My next guy, I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm going to go to Elizabeth City State for Tayon Reynolds. And this is a guy who's physical. He's got great size, 6'2", 205. Watched his tape this morning. A very hard hitter. Had more than a couple like body slam tackles in there. I mean, I didn't know guys still did that in this day and age, but apparently he does. 4 interceptions this year. Some of the breaks that he made, I mean, were just, amazing breaks in the ball. And also in his tape too, with some special teams plays, running down kickoffs, making tackles on special teams, which I guess even just having that on your highlight reel shows, I guess, the eagerness to play special teams. Even though, like, of course, like I'm sure everyone given a shot in the league is going to want to play special teams, but maybe that I guess explicit move shows teams that I guess is what it takes for teams to give them a look, whether it be in late rounds or after the draft as a UDFA.
I mean, yes, since I went ahead and I touched on all 5 of my guys, have you guys done all 5 of yours? Because if not, if you have, I want to go ahead and touch on a couple of guys we haven't talked about yet. But I'll wait until you guys have done your 5.
I got one more. I think Jackson, you have one more too. Yeah, we both got one
for
more.
You?
Oh, what was that?
Is it Neil for you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you can take Neil.
I was gonna touch on. So Neil Boudreau, obviously friend of the podcast, came on about a month ago or so. Played quarterback and punter. Well, only punt in this game, but man, he was excellent as a punter. And what I would really like to see, a little fake punt pass. I don't know if we're playing Senior Bowl rules here and if that's allowed, but if so, certainly would love to see it. And he'll definitely be a threat. So.
Hopefully they play Hula Bowl rules where they don't return it, and his net punt yardage can just skyrocket too, because I know Tommy Heatherly and the other punter in the Hula Bowl were just shooting rockets the whole game, and it was like they had there was no rush. It was just like practice for them. So hopefully Neil gets that treatment as well. I know you had the rule. I know you had something about the rules later on, because I know you're the All-Star Game rules expert. I mean, I just watched the game and was like, oh, okay, they're not doing this, but you have it to a T beforehand, Jackson. So I'll let you cover that after.
And you gotta go to the websites. They have the PDF on there. Just look it up, man.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I never thought
you got me there.
I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you got me there, honestly. I guess there really is no excuse, but yeah, so I guess I'm going to stay on the special team side of the ball this time with returns. Tyron Ralph out of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and just a flashback to the spring of 2021 where we had Troy Lenvey on the show after his amazing performance in the SWAC title game, where he had a 19-yard run to go along with his punting, where I thought he was robbed of MVP honors by a cool glass. But he mentioned how he wasn't afraid to punt to Tyron Ralph, and that's a bold statement because Ralph was an amazing return man in his years at Pine Bluff, averaging almost 14 yards per punt return in his career and 24 yards per kick return. Really too, we talk about special teams, like, and of course, if you look at HBCUs, return specialists with, success, Tariq Cohen comes to mind. Is he the human joystick? Is that his nickname?
He's most definitely the human joystick. Yes, sir.
The human joystick. Wasn't that also Dante Hall?
Yes, it was.
Ooh, okay. I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess going off that point too, just if the special teams rules permit kick returns, I would love to see Ralph get out in space, and even then just get out in the flats on offense, whether Team Robinson, not Gator, Team Robinson draws up plays, whether it be bubble screens or jet sweeps to get Tyron Ralph on the edge. I would love to see it too, because Ralph, he's got explosiveness, he's got great speed, just great open field ability. For Arkansas Pine Bluff, forgot to mention the school.
Oh, yeah. Now, there were a couple of guys, some of them I'm highly shocked that you guys didn't touch on, that I have to go ahead and give shouts out to. Now, you talked about that Team Robinson that's going to be head coached. Well, it's technically co-head coaches, but Willie Simmons over there from Florida A&M, who was known for his wide open offenses. It's going to be very interesting to see how he does his offense with Akil Glass, who we've already talked about a little bit earlier, who was just, it was released earlier today that he was named the Black College Football Player of the Year, receiving the Deacon Jones Award. from the Black College Football Hall of Fame. And then also with Felix Harper from Alcorn State, another quarterback out there that's going to be playing with his guy, hopefully, Charles Pringle. And then, of course, Juwan passed the transfer from Louisville that played last year with Prairie View A&M. Right now, if you're asking me, the Team Robinson most definitely has a huge advantage on the quarterback side of the ball. But you also can't leave out Bryce Witt from Juwan University, from out of CIAA. He was the CIAA 2021 Offensive Player of the Year. And a couple of running backs that you guys didn't talk about, from Bowie State, Khalil Wilkins, who rushed for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns with that Bowie State team that made it to the Elite Eight in the Division II level. And then I got to talk about my man, the J Train, Jermaine Martin. There was nowhere in the world I was going to go through this show and not talk about an Aggie. There was no way I was going to do that. I couldn't do that. Now, you're talking about a 1,000-yard back who got a lot of fanfare, especially in 2019 when they went on to win the Celebration Bowl. Unfortunately, he was hampered by a lot of injuries and did not look like himself there this past season in the first year in the Big South. But there were a lot of people who were impressed with the way that he looked at the HBCU Combine. Going down a list, you want to talk about the receivers. You talked about Gross already, Ralph, Pringle, and we also talked about Anderson. At the tight end spot, I'm intrigued to see what Isaiah Macklin from North Carolina Central does. He's 6'5", 215, undersized as a tight end, which leads me to believe that he's probably too slow to be a wideout if they had him at tight end at 215. Sorry, Isaiah, it is what it is. You know I got to go ahead and roast you Eagles. But at 215, if you're playing tight end, you might not be speedy. But one thing he can do, if they like him for his size and if he can block, he can, of course, gain weight and be capable of playing tight end at the NFL level. Also, I want to talk about a couple of more offensive linemen. Like I said before, I can't leave out my Aggies. DeJour Simpson from North Carolina A&T, part of that O-line, two-time Black College national champion there, North Carolina A&T, and of course, a two-time All-MEAC selection. And then I think that might be it with all of the guys that I want to most definitely point at. But you cannot discredit any of these players that are participating in this game because, of course, all of them have been all-conference selections, if not all All-Americans at some point in their career.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like we say, I mean, just the landscape's so big too. I mean, everyone trying to compete, even in the local area, I guess, for attending games in person. Like you mentioned all the wealth of talent in North Carolina. And you ask any fan, I mean, who does their due diligence, how many of them will mention, teams like Shaw University? I know I wouldn't. And I mean, I think I have a pretty good grasp on I guess, college football viewing and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited too. There's just so much talent on the field. That's what these All-Star games are about too. I mean, and I know we've kind of lost focus of it in this day and age where I can go on YouTube and watch someone's highlight film and see what a player is all about. But just seeing the best play against each other too. I mean, it truly is great. And that's what these games are about. And it's not as much as a spectacle as it was in old days where that was your chance to see a player in their last game, before. I mean, the player, finally seeing a player, especially I always think about the East West Shrine game being around since 1925, these people in San Francisco, actually seeing a player after hearing them on radio, if they were lucky, once a year. It's amazing how technology has progressed, but that's a moot point. Yeah, we had some discussion points too. Also, I'll let Jackson handle that as well. But there's so many players to watch out for this game. And who knows? You might find a player you like, and that might become your new favorite HBCU. For those that aren't familiar with HBCU football.
Absolutely, and a lot of these guys, I'm sure we'll see on day 3 of the draft, and hopefully a couple of them can pop in on day 2 as well, in rounds 2 and 3. So. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I know I've got a few questions for you, Duane. One thing I saw on Twitter earlier this week, HBCU Legacy Bowl rings. Man, I love this idea. Something for these guys to remember for a lifetime. Any idea on how this came about?
I have no idea how that came about. And when I saw it in your notes a little bit earlier, that was the first I saw of it. but I am highly impressed by this because talking to a couple of the players that have participated in some of the other All-Star games in the past, I won't name them because what I'm about to say may be a little bit disparaging to them, but I've gotten mixed reactions based upon their experiences at these respective games. But to have to play in a game like this, that's going to be on a national stage, national television, NFL Network, and again, in front of NFL talents like God, Patrick Mahomes is going to be there. I know Teron Armstead, of course, who's also a sponsor of the game, is going to be there. And then all the dignitaries that are going to be there as well, getting the opportunity to play in it. Well, they won't be playing in the NFL stadium. I forgot about that. They're going to be playing. What stadium will they be playing again, Jackson? Please help me remember this.
Yeoman Stadium. But I will say this: you say not an NFL stadium. I mean, if you close your eyes and feel the breeze, it'll be just like Tulane Stadium, like before the Saints moved to the Super Bowl.
Well, close enough. So you have these guys that have an opportunity to play on TV. I mean, of course, these guys have played on TV before, but some of them haven't. Like your guy from Langston. A lot of the D2 guys, they haven't had an opportunity to get a national audience in front of them. This will be that opportunity for them to get a chance to shine, along with showing NFL scouts and team owners and GMs what they're about and whether or not they're going to move up to the next level. But to your point about the rings, wonderful idea. It's going to be most definitely a talking point. And for those that already have conference championship rings and national championship rings, if they're capable of walking away with an HBCU legacy ring, that's just another piece of jewelry they most definitely can brag about for the rest of their life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely something that will be passed along for generations, something to always talk about. So, man, you walked me right into my next question about how we saw Lauren Young, obviously the defensive lineman from Langston, hanging out with Commanders legend Doug Williams. You already answered my question. What other legends are going to be there with Armstead and Mahomes being there? So that's going to be awesome to see down there. A bunch of legends. I'm sure NFL Network will do a great job pointing them out during the broadcast as well. One thing I wanted to ask you, we talked a lot about the HBCU combine that Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl helped put on a little bit. Only 4 HBCU players that got an invite to the big combine out there in Indianapolis. I'm curious, Duane, in your opinion, what impact did the HBCU combine have for these guys to get not only a workout, but an interview with NFL teams?
My hope is that it had a big impact. We don't necessarily see until draft day and that following Monday and Tuesday afterwards when you start seeing, that Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday when you start seeing the UDFAs get picked up and who they get picked up by. Again, it's about the decision makers, because of course throughout the year the scouts, they see these guys. So the scouts, they're very familiar with these guys. It's the front office guys, the decision makers, the head coaches, the GMs, the owners, whether or not, they go ahead and see these guys, meet these guys in person, and take an opportunity to select these guys to come and play for their organization. That's in my eyes, when we'll see whether or not the HBCU combine worked or not. But to your point about the regular NFL combine, at first I was a little hesitant when Coach Deion Sanders of Jackson State said what he said originally about his comments. Of course, because we had the HBCU combine, but it made perfect sense in terms of maybe we shouldn't do an HBCU combine. Why can't these guys just participate in the regular NFL combine? Because let's be real, with the amount of guys that don't participate in the NFL combine because they want to go ahead and work out in comfortable confines of their own university during their pro days, there are a lot of slots that are left open. And with the amount of guys that went to the HBCU combine, which is a little bit over 40, that's probably about 4 or 5 guys per position. You can send those 4 or 5 guys to the NFL combine, and it wouldn't be a beat loss, especially with the amount of guys. I haven't done the math yet, but I'm just intrigued by the amount of guys that won't participate and wondering how much would an extra guy or two in that spot hurt to come out there and work out and get in front of these NFL execs. I don't think it would.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one big thing with the big NFL combine that I'm not sure if they did this at the HBCU combine, man, you have the most thorough medical evaluation of your life at the combine, right? And so any little hint of doubt or anything like that about any sort of injury, that'll get solved at the big combine. Hopefully they did that, the HBCU combine as well. But man, if they didn't, man, like you said, those 4 or 5 slots, if they can go to Indianapolis and guys know, hey, our teams know beyond a shadow of a doubt that injury isn't going to impact them at the professional level, definitely something to that could make an impact later on, like you said.
Oh, most definitely. But it's also a great benefit to have an HBCU Legacy Bowl, to have an opportunity. Again, if you were to even open up those 4 or 5 slots, there would still be guys that wouldn't be able to compete or to work out at the NFL Combine, potentially like a D. Anderson or like a Tyron Ralph. It's just another opportunity to go ahead and get these guys in front of execs to have another eye on them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing you mentioned Dion just a little bit earlier. I'm curious. So Dion has definitely brought a lot of attention to the HBCUs, especially Jackson State. I'm curious, is the impact, in your opinion, overall good? Overall, a little bit more negative? Seems like a lot more exposure, maybe a little bit less authentic. You're a lot closer to the HBCUs than I am. So you tell me your opinion on that.
Well, depends on who you talk to. But if you talk to a lot of HBCU fans, it's a mixed bag. Of course, the biggest thing is the amount of exposure that HBCU football has been receiving because of it, which is a huge positive, right? But of course, you start getting down to some of the smaller things that HBCU fans or I would say more hardcore and dedicated HBCU fans would like to see, especially within the SWAC, is improved OOC play and a level of competition that those guys compete against. Now, I get it. You got 12 teams within your conference. A lot of these teams would like to play the majority of the teams within the SWAC if they could. But to play against teams that are coming out of the OVC, coming out of the Southland and other FCS conferences within that region, a lot of these fans would love to see that happen more so that when that conversation about who is capable of competing on the FCS level, you can actually have some sort of data with the SWAC playing against those programs. But the one thing you really can't beat is the amount of exposure that they've received. And it's just, I'm not going to say fully it's because of Deion Sanders, but the timing of a lot of this stuff with the HBCU Legacy Bowl, with the HBCU Combine, all of this happening around the time in which he was hired. Actually, the HBCU Combine was an idea that not necessarily, it wasn't started by, but it was spearheaded by Deion Sanders a few years ago before he was hired as Jackson State coach. That never really came into fruition. And then in 2020, when it was supposed to, of course, COVID did what it did, as it did to a lot of things, and put it on hold. But again, a lot of things just happened to happen once he got hired, in terms of increased television exposure for that conference, increased awareness with business opportunities to become sponsors for these institutions, and then of course increased awareness from the media and from its from the alumni and fans of HBCU football. So now that they're a little bit more, for the non-hardcore fan, now they're paying a little bit more attention because you have head coaches like Deion Sanders, Hugh Jackson, and of course Eddie George at the helm of their respective institutions. When I say that, I'm not most definitely disrespecting any of the other head coaches that are at other HBCUs, like a Sam Washington that has also played in the NFL, like a Rod Milstead that's up there at Delaware State, like a Willie Simmons, like a Buddy Pugh. All those guys, wonderful head coaches, but for whatever reason, it just seems as though that your casual fan only really cares about those guys that have names and are highly impressed by those. But hey, my thing is, if it gets them to come in and it gets them to be a contributor to HBCU athletics on the financial aspect, something that we need to work on, fine by me.
That's a good perspective to have. You can understand the importance of the exposure and, like you said, the financial aspect, but also know that it's not all positive, if that makes sense. So that's a great opinion to have. I like how balanced that is.
Oh, of course, but just for a quick, another point real quick, one of the things that I'm a little concerned about is, of course, what I like to call AP, after prime, because we all know in collegiate athletics, at the head coaching spot, let's be real, the average life expectancy of a head coach at a particular spot is somewhere between 4 to 6 years. And be it a choice of his own, or because, unfortunately, because of the play of his team on the field, right? And with the overtures that Coach Sanders has been receiving from other institutions, especially from Power 5 teams, more so like Florida State, where he interviewed before taking the Jackson State job. Same thing with Arkansas. Of course, it's just come out this past week where, even though he denied it in the past, the job over at TCU, where it's now starting to seem as though he interviewed there as well. So once he leaves, my thing is whether or not these head coaches and the commissioners of these conferences can learn what has gone on while he's been there and continue on that path of success, so that it's something that's sustainable for the future, and not have to rely on who I like to call a unicorn to continue to have this thing run.
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point. And man, if the growth continues at this trend, we might have, BCAD, like you said, AP for after prime at the rate this is going in HBCU history. One thing also that you mentioned earlier, you mentioned the SWAC and just how strong it is. If you don't know, in the FCS level, especially the MEAC and the SWAC are really the main two. One's on the up, one's on the down. The SWAC is certainly trending upward. The MEAC, only 16 players in the Legacy Bowl. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the future of the MEAC? Do you see it hopefully getting a little bit more positive in the near future?
I'm hoping, right? And being a North Carolina A&T alum, there are a lot of people who, on the outside looking in, that probably don't know me, probably think that I'm waiting on the demise of the MEAC, which is completely false. That's what I grew up on, is the MEAC, being here in DC and being very close in proximity to Howard University. There, of course, are MEAC founders, right? And same as my home institution of A&T, and that's all I've known is the MEAC. And yes, unfortunately, there were a lot of things that were being done within the conference under Dennis Thomas, the former commissioner, that I just wasn't a fan of. I still wanted to see that the conference succeed, and still do. And for the football side, I'm a little concerned because there really hasn't been any talks of a sustainable addition for the football side. Now, there's been talks on whether or not Maryland Eastern Shore, which is, of course, is a full, not a full, but majority member of the MEAC, because, of course, they no longer have a football program. But, of course, they had a prestigious historical one. Of course, we all know Art Shell, out of Oakland Raiders fame, is a Maryland Eastern Shore alum. They're looking to potentially bring that program back. And if they can go ahead and do that, that's, of course, adding another program to the MEAC. But my thing is there going to be another institution that they're going to be capable of adding on the football side? There has been discussion about Chicago State, but, of course, Chicago State doesn't have a football program. And, of course, Kentucky State, that is the D2 program out of the SEAC. But I'm just intrigued to see exactly what they do, how it's done. But, of course, being that they don't have an automatic qualifier in the FCS, you don't necessarily need a lot of teams. You just go ahead and play with who you have. And then, of course, your conference champion goes on and participates in the Celebration Bowl with the hope that you may be capable of getting another team from the MEAC to get in as an at-large bid. But I always say, you can't have a wife and a girlfriend, so you got to be committed to one. And that being said, you need to go ahead and stay committed to the CIAA. Don't worry about the playoffs. If the playoffs come, they come, but don't focus on it. Just do your part, and if it happens, it happens.
To the MEAC's point, certainly doesn't hurt that they have the defending Celebration Bowl champs on their side, right? So, and beating Dion. So
yeah, right. And to your point, if not for an untimely helmet removal, which I'm now going to go ahead and call the Vernon Hargraves penalty for a celebration. If you don't have that, there's a huge chance that the MEAC just sweeps the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC doesn't have a Celebration Bowl title at all. So, of course, I always got to remind those Eagles that, hey, you ruined it for the MEAC as much as you talk about us leaving it. You ruined that for the MEAC for having that complete rule. But it's kind of ironic as well, being that Dennis Thomas was one of the guys to go ahead and spearhead the whole concept of the Celebration Bowl. And I wanted to ask him, hopefully I get an opportunity to, I'm wondering, was this done on purpose to be a showcase, to show the world that, hey, the MEAC is just that much better than the SWAC?
I gotta say though, I love the excessive Celebration Bowl reference. Aptly named.
As a Gator, you hurt me, but you didn't have to bring Hargreaves into it, man. Come on.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Jackson deserved that. Jackson deserved that. If only you knew. If only you knew the Army jokes. But yeah, no, I mean, I always forget that the MEAC has almost swept the Celebration Bowl, and even we saw it too in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. We're like, I was at that game, and I thought, man, I mean, it's gonna be a blowout. I mean, I know Alcorn State, this is Alcorn State,
Yeah.
But even then, they were just outplayed by North Carolina Central. I mean, just to credit the conference. I mean, that conference, it's small. The MEAC's small, but they still got dogs. I mean, even Delaware State, a team with all the institutional sort of obstacles against it, in terms of underfunding relative to the flagship school, Delaware. I mean, I keep saying that they're up next, I mean, they have the makings, they got the strong defense, they got the downhill run game, nothing but dogs in that conference. I mean, Morgan State, they're kind of struggling a bit, but the history is there. I mean, so yeah, I mean, 6-team conference, but they're hanging on. I mean, and plus too, I mean, how many FCS schools would love the lot that the MEAC has, despite having 6 teams, where, their champion gets an appearance on ABC. It's the first bowl of bowl season. There was a joke I saw about James Madison. Oh, no.
Yeah, because you got to remember, games like the Bahamas Bowl, and there are 2 other bowl games that happened before the Celebration Bowl.
Right.
But
okay.
that is the way that the game is marketed. So my man over there, John Grant, has worked this magic even on you. I see over there, Omar, to have you to continue to believe that game is the first bowl game of the season, even though it's not. That's the way they still advertise that game, and that's the way they still push it. But I love it that the fact that people still remember it as being that. Now, to your point with the MEAC and Delaware State and Morgan State, my God, the Hornets were 18 points away, truly, from being the MEAC champion this year. That's how tough they played teams this year within the conference. And Morgan State, I'm a little intrigued to see what type of direction they go into, because, of course, unfortunately, they just lost their head coach, Tyron Wheatley, to the Denver Broncos. He's moved on to become the running backs coach over there. And, of course, everyone's always, especially ever since the Deion Sanders hire, everyone wants to see an HBCU make a splash higher. So the name, I don't know how truthful it is, that has been floating around that head coach position there in Baltimore has been Ray Lewis. I don't know how truthful that is. But also, Ed Reed is another guy who wants to be a head coach at an institution. And there was conversation that he may have been interviewed for either the Grambling and or the Southern job, being that he is a Louisiana native. But again, you got an opening in the city where he really made his name in football, in Baltimore, where it's a possibility he could be a consideration there too.
I will say this, yeah. I mean, I didn't think about Ray Lewis. I mean, so many of these teams are in metro areas where of course schools are. I mean, if Howard, if Howard lets go of their coach soon, whoever that may be, I forget who it is, they can always get.
It's Larry Scott. Yeah.
Whenever they let him go, they can always go after Doug Williams, who of course coached Grambling to some successful years. The possibilities are endless. But I just want to insert too, when we talk about Delaware State a little bit. I think the Norfolk State blew a 26-0 lead should be the new 28-3, because that was a wild game. 26-0 is the new 28-3.
But yeah, it almost became the new 27-3 as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I guess if there's no more bold lead talk, Jackson, I know you have one more bullet point for special teams. I know I don't even have I don't even have a grasp on what the special teams rules are. So I guess you can explain that.
I don't either. That's what I was going to ask Duane is I'm curious. So a lot of these guys that are going to be playing on Saturday, they'll probably, if they make that 53-man cut come August, it's probably going to be because of their ability to contribute on special teams. I'm curious, do you know if the Legacy Bowl is going to be treating this more like the Senior Bowl where we saw 80% speed on special team snaps, or like Omar mentioned beforehand, 10% like the Hula Bowl did in Orlando?
You know what? I'm intrigued to see how they treat it as well, because you talk about special teams and you got guys like Trent Cannon from Virginia State, running back who led the conference in rushing, that of course it has been a special teams specialist with the Jets, who's currently now with the San Francisco 49ers. And then of course, Danny Johnson, the cornerback from Southern that's currently with the Washington Commanders, that has played the majority of his time here in DC as a special teams specialist. So that will be an opportunity for them to go ahead and get looks there too, especially for those guys that have played special teams at their respective institutions. And now that was also something I almost forgot too, with the Darius Skelton. We talked about his ability to be a dual threat. I thought it was very interesting that they have him listed as a running back. So I'm intrigued to see exactly how he competes at that position in this bowl game, and whether or not he can compete on the level of the other talented running backs that are going to be there too.
If anyone has any questions on whether or not special teams really impacts your ability to make the roster, look up Terrell Davis's story from his first preseason game. So
yes,
just look that up if you have any questions. So absolutely, man, I can't wait. That may be one of the things I'm looking forward to most, seeing how they treat this thing. In all honesty, it really is a third of the phase of football,
always.
Right? So definitely something that's going to be important. And man, so many playmakers on this. Can't wait to see a few of these shine, whether it be as receivers, as quarterbacks, or as gunners. Who knows? So can't wait
exactly.
to see.
Well, I'm just shocked by your knowledge of collegiate all-star game rules. I never even paid attention to that. Now I'm going to start paying attention and keeping an eye on this stuff.
Man, if it's like the Senior Bowl, you can't bring more than 4, and you can only have a nickel package if there's 4 receivers. Like if you're in like 10 or 1 personnel, I guess. So a few things. I can get your email from Omar and send you the PDF if you want from the Senior Bowl. I'm guessing they're going to model it after that. So something to look for sure, and how it impacts the play calling.
Most definitely.
I will say this about special teams. I'll play devil's advocate here, man. I gotta say, I know I mentioned earlier, I love the Hula Bowl rolls, man, because let the punters cook. Let them cook. I mean, shoot, like when I was at the Hula Bowl, I mean, like I guess seeing Anthony Brown, throw a touchdown pass, that's cool and all, but man, do you see Tommy Heatherly, kick that 60+ yards? Like, wow. That's the most exciting part for me. I mean, so I'll play devil's advocate. Like, bring on, especially Neil. I mean, and I want the punters to have fun with it. There's no rush. I want to see them roll out. Just to troll, roll out and do a rugby kick with no rush, just to troll a bit. But that's my devil's advocate for the punts. I mean, I just love a good whether a nice high punt or a nice coffin corner. Even the XFL, not so much with the coffin corner punts, as we all remember. But
I'm the devil's advocate. Who knows?
It might not even be like a devil's advocate. That's like liking punts is such a not so, I guess, risky personality trait. It might just be like a angel's advocate or something. Like it's definitely not devil's advocate. I swear I don't have a bland personality. I mean, it's just punts are beautiful too. But that's just my point.
It's a third of the game, and it's a phase that a lot more people need to be paying attention to. Hey, that's one of the things maybe Jackson State should have paid attention to too during the Celebration Bowl, because that punter over there in South Carolina State with his play, he won a special teams player of the game. But my God, the way he flipped the field. And the way that defense played, with the way that they put the field in their favor, played a key role in South Carolina State in their bullyingness of the Tigers down in Atlanta for them to win that championship game.
Absolutely. I mean, Dyson Roberts was revelation. I mean, you know about the Michael Dixon punt game in 2017 against Missouri? We got the Dyson Roberts Celebration Bowl punt game. Just an outstanding performance. But I think that's a good note to close on. If you guys have anything to add, yeah, this has been great. NFL Network, 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you're a cord cutter, get to your
Wait a
local
minute,
sports
is
bar.
it 4?
4 Eastern, yep.
I've been saying 3 this whole time because the website says 3, and I was questioning whether or not it's because it's Central Standard Time, and that's why they have it listed as 3. Okay, even better, because of course at 2 p.m. Eastern, you have the NBA HBCU Classic between Howard and Morgan State, which is going to be held, of course, during the All-Star NBA All-Star break celebration. They're going to go ahead and have this first ever HBCU Classic between the two of those teams, where they're going to go ahead and donate $100,000 to both institutions, as well as giving them TV exposure, with the game being simulcast on both TNT and I think ESPNU or ESPN2, one of those networks. But yeah, it's going to be on television as well.
That's huge. I mean, Howard basketball has been raking in the exposure. They had the epic game against Notre Dame on MLK Day. I mean, that was must-watch TV on Fox too. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge day for HBCU sports. I forgot about the classic on TNT, but huge day for HBCU sports. Yeah, I mean, just tune in all day. I mean, you might want to, if you're a cord cutter, you might want to park it at a local sports bar, and just
Sling free trial. They have
Sling free trial. That's also the answer to. That's also the answer to a free trial for Sling. Whatever you can, you don't want to miss it. It'll be amazing. And I mean, we're all excited for it. This has been great. Duane, is always a pleasure to have you on the pod.
It's great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, no, it was fun. And until next time, peace, love, and soul, everyone.